Call this meeting to order. I want to welcome you all to the Council Economic Development meeting, Economic Development Committee meeting, joined by my colleagues Nuri Martinez, Paul Krikorian, Jose Huizar, and soon to be joined by Gil Cedillo. We have just one item on the agenda, and Mr. Clerk, why don't you read that item for us?
Item number 1 is a motion, Bonin, Martinez, Price, Koretz, Labange, relative to a proposed study of the citywide impacts of imposing a living wage of $15.37 for hotel employees at hotels with more than 100 rooms.
Thank you. I'm very excited to have all of you here today to discuss this very important motion that my colleagues and I put forward. Study after study tells us that poverty, unemployment, and income disparities are plaguing Los Angeles, and they continue to be an impediment to total economic revitalization. Before us, we have an opportunity to do something to change this dynamic. This motion helps take a step forward towards resolving this persistent problem in an industry that has received various benefits from the city and which continues to thrive. Hotels in LA have seen their businesses grow consistently over the last 3 years, even with strains of the economic recession. Our hotels are currently enjoying a record high occupancy of 75%, more than 10 percentage points higher than the national average. Yet, we know that 43% of hotel workers in our city are making poverty wages that don't allow them to provide for their families without working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Nationally and across the state, we're seeing public debate unfold about the issue of income disparities, with President Obama recently calling this the defining challenge of our time. Representing the 9th District, one of the poorest in the region, I know firsthand the negative impacts that income disparities can have. When hardworking men and women are working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent, they don't have time to engage in civic engagement. They don't have time to be involved in their children's education. We need engaged parents in communities like mine if we're ever going to break the cycle of poverty. But this action not only improves the lives of our working families, this is about boosting our local economy. When local families make more money, they spend more money. And these folks are not going to invest those dollars on Wall Street. They're going to invest them in Main Street, at the grocery store, at the market. That's why we have already received the support of some 700 businesses, including the worldwide organization like Westfield, LLC. They know that leveling the playing field for some of our lowest paid workers will create increased purchasing power and economic growth. Some of you might know this, but my district is finally getting a shopping center, 77,000 square foot shopping center, with simple conveniences like a supermarket, a Starbucks, a Panda Express, Little Caesars, a bank, and other retailers. This community has not had a shopping center in decades, and I need to make sure that we can have more of these amenities for our residents, and these businesses won't come if we can't prove that our communities have spending power too. While I feel this motion is a win-win for our local economy and a win for some of our hardest working men and women, I know that much work remains to be done. The motion before us is simply asking to launch an economic impact study, which will allow us to have a better informed debate. I look forward to hearing from both supporters and opponents as we work together to craft a good, sound policy for the benefit of all Los Angeles. With that, I'd like to allow my colleagues to chime in, and then we can hear from staff and take public comment. Let me invite you, if you haven't done so, to fill out a card if you care to share your thoughts with us, and make sure that we get them up to the front. With that, let me introduce the co-author of this measure, Councilwoman Nuri Martinez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Thank you, everyone, for being here this afternoon. And I look forward to hearing all sides of this issue. I think it's important to have a robust discussion of any impacts, good or bad, of this proposal. And we shouldn't be in a position where we have to choose between employees and the working class and the hotel industry. In fact, we should be supporting both. We should be doing everything we can to ensure that our working families in this city have a respectful wage at the same time that we continue to support the investment in the hotel industry. So I look forward to a study that is fair and moves quickly in the process, but most importantly, a fair study so that we can answer all your questions and move forward from there. So I look forward to the discussion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilman Cedillo?
I'm going to reserve my comments until after I hear public testimony and have a discussion with the city attorney.
Okay. Paul? After testimony? Okay, great. Well, let's get the show started. We're going to ask our colleague, Councilman Bonin, to come forward. He is also a principal author of this motion. And as he comes forward, if you would send in your public comment cards, we're going to ask you to limit your comments to 1 minute so that we can accommodate everyone. Councilman, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. It's kind of fun to be on this side of the table again, as I was for a very long time. Thank you for hearing this item today. I want to thank Chairman Price and Councilwoman Martinez for co-sponsoring this action with me. It has been a pleasure to work in partnership with you both. The three of us, as I've said, represent different parts of the city, represent different constituencies, and come from different backgrounds. But we all came to this action and this proposal at the same time and in unison. And part of what we're trying to do here is continue a progressive tradition in Los Angeles of growing the economy by raising wages and by raising the income floor here in Los Angeles. Back in the mid-'90s, in this building, Jackie Goldberg led an effort to create a citywide living wage for those who do business with the city of Los Angeles. It was one of the first in its nation. Because of that, living wages have sprung up in other cities and have moved across the country. And it has been an important way to grow a middle class in various parts of the country and in various levels of the economy. Just a few years ago, 2006, 2007 or so, Councilwoman Janice Hahn and Bill Rosendahl put in a motion and won approval of an ordinance that created a very similar motion to the one we have before us today with a living wage for large hotels along Century Boulevard near Los Angeles International in my district. The City Council just a few years ago increased a living wage for folks who work in the service industry at Los Angeles International Airport. The City of Santa Monica includes a hotel living wage in most of their hotel development agreements. The City of Santa Monica is now proposing to raise its citywide living wage to the same wage that we propose here in this ordinance. The City of Long Beach, just a few months ago, the voters there approved a living wage for hotel workers in that city. We have been at the forefront of this, and it's a tradition I hope that we continue today. And it's important to do it not just because it is the right thing to do for many of those workers who work full-time job or jobs and still do not make enough money to support their families, but it's also an important strategy to grow the middle class here in Los Angeles. We have all been struck by the reports that we have seen about the growing income disparity in Los Angeles and the fact that we have a barbell economy. And there's two ways to combat that. One is to grow the middle class with new middle class jobs here in Los Angeles. And I get to see a lot of that in my district with Google and YouTube and the Silicon Beach industry emerging. But it's also important to raise the floor for those who work hard and try to bring home money to support their families and do not make it into the middle class. It's important to note, as Mr. Price indicated, that Westfield has submitted a letter in support of this because they understand that fueling the economy, that giving more money to working families help fuels the economy. There are too many folks who can't help grow our economy because they don't have enough take-home pay to fix their car. They don't have enough take-home pay to buy new clothes for their kids to go to school. They don't have enough take-home pay for the basic necessities of life. And those are the things that make our mom and pop businesses here in Los Angeles us thrive. This is what makes our neighborhood businesses thrive. So I thank you for your consideration today. I look forward to the study. I look forward to seeing the work of this committee, and am happy to provide input anytime I can. Just thank you very much, and look forward to us continuing this tradition of Los Angeles being a leader in creating a middle-class economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any cards this time? Again, we're going to ask you to keep your remarks to 1 minute, and we'll begin with Mark Davis, followed by Melinda Mayashiro.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate the time that you've given us. There's a lot of smart people in this Economic Development Council, and we trust you a lot. And I just want to explore you to make sure that your study that you do is very thorough. My concern is I'm the general manager of the Hilton Universal, Los Angeles. My sustaining efforts every day are to try to sustain 550 jobs for my associates. The concerns that I have are the reports that I read, for example, at the LAX corridor where it was implemented, that it cost LAX Hilton 67 jobs. There obviously were people that benefited from the increase in wages, but at the expense of 67 other people, ladies and gentlemen. And I just deplore you to look at that possibility. The other item is making sure that it's not exempting anyone. When we look at county and city boundaries, when we look at adjacent cities with competitors, it's hard to compete in that market with an unfair wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Melinda, followed by Reverend Rick Hoyt.
Good afternoon.
And Richard Zaldibar.
Thank you for having me. My name is Melinda Miyashiro. I know what it feels like to be the kid who gets free lunch at school and whose mom pays for groceries with food stamps. My father left, and my mother struggled to get us by. A deep feeling of insecurity consumed me until I was 18. When I moved out on my own, I vowed to never get to that place again. I spent 10 years at the Lowe's at Hollywood and Highland. It was a good job with a decent wage. I worked front desk, phone operations, and concierge. When I left the Lowe's Hollywood last year, I was earning just shy of $18 an hour. This wage gave me financial security. I was on my way to paying off all my student loans. I had some savings, and I felt safe. But I wanted to advance in the hospitality industry. I decided to leave the Lowe's for an opportunity at a non-union hotel on a management track. Unfortunately, the management plan didn't work out, and I found myself back at the front desk. I'm at a non-union hotel in Van Nuys. I'm not mentioning the name of my hotel for fear of retaliation, but I can offer proof today of my employment there. Earning $11 an hour has meant a return to that feeling of insecurity. I earn just enough to cover my portion of rent and bills. I'm 38 years old. My husband and I want to start a family, but I can't see how we could afford it. Earning $11 an hour means an unexpected expense would put me in the red. My car has 260,000 miles on it. I worry constantly that it's going to break down. The first thing I would do if I earned $15 an hour is buy a new car. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Rick Hoyt. I'm the minister at the First Unitarian Church of Los Angeles, which is in Cedillo's district, and we just finished an 85-unit affordable housing project in your district. And I live here in downtown, so I'm part of Weezar's district. I was asked to come to provide the moral argument for this policy, but I've not heard anything but moral arguments so far. I'm looking forward to this study. I think it'll answer a lot of the economic questions, but the moral argument is very simple. It's just that every person deserves the chance to live their life of meaning and worth and dignity. One of the ways that we measure work as being meaningful, worthwhile, and dignified is through the wages that we pay them. So our employers in Los Angeles need to be guided by wage policies that are not simply what the market can bear, but also wages that are going to give that kind of message to their employees that these are people who are worthwhile and valuable, and their lives are worth dignity, the ability to raise them, to support themselves, and to support a small family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Richard Zaldivar, I'm the founder of the Wall Las Memorias Project. I'm a gay and AIDS activist here in the city of Los Angeles. Built an AIDS monument in the 1st District, thanks to Gil Cedillo, my friend. Here to support Raise LA. You know, as again an AIDS activist, there's nothing more important than the issue of the economic issue and fair pay for the work performed. Our people, many of our workers are closeted LGBT. They could be African American or Latino. They also need to get a fair amount of pay for the work that they do. And, you know, just a few weeks ago, I went to the huge concrete pour of the new hotel down the street. The hotel business is booming in Los Angeles. And it's not okay that people are not paid an adequate amount of money in this still recovering recession. So on behalf of many people out there in the HIV/AIDS community and the LGBT community, we support this initiative, and we really would appreciate your support too. Thank you.
Thank you. Priscilla Chang, followed by James Elbendorf and Stuart Waldman.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. My name is Priscilla Chang, and I'm here on behalf of Maria Elena Durazo and the hundreds of thousands of working men and women that work and live in the city of Los Angeles. One of the fundamental problems in our nation is too many people work too hard for too little. The Federation commissioned a study that we unveiled last month by the Economic Roundtable, and as we unveiled this, you might have seen the billboards that are all around, 7 of them across the city of Los Angeles. 810,564 people in the city of Los Angeles are working people living in poverty. Imagine how much money, millions of dollars, could be generated in our neighborhoods if our friends, families, and neighbors made a decent wage. The tourism industry, unfortunately, leads the way in producing poverty wage jobs, more than any other industry besides retail. The good news is tourism leads the way for our city as a generator of revenue, and it's doing better than ever before. You might have seen it in the paper. I just want to say, and I don't have to wrap up, we know that raising wages is the right thing to do, from the president to the pope, the governor, and even conservatives like Ron Unz. So we urge you to move forward today on this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is James Elmendorf from the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here and for moving forward. We're glad that you're taking the initial step to study the issue. We think that's an important step. As we look at it, there are 2 important questions here. The first is to look at whether workers need a wage, and I think you've heard from a worker who, and general sense will tell you that yes, workers in the hotel industry do need a wage increase. The 17,000 hotel workers who live in Los Angeles make an average of $10.55 an hour. That's not enough to live on. The second question to ask is whether the hotel industry can afford such a wage. We know that there are many hotels that already do pay more than $15 an hour, as one of the earlier speakers suggested. We also know from our research that 10 years ago, the industry as a whole paid 37% of its revenue for hotel worker compensation. Today, they only pay 32%, which means that hotels are making more money. They're having record years, record profits and record revenues every year, but they're not contributing that back to workers. We ask you to move forward expeditiously to do a full and fair study, as the council member suggested, to make sure to look at these core questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Stuart Waldman. I'm president of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA. VICA opposes the living wage proposal in front of us. And one example of why we oppose it is there was already a casualty here. A hotel in the San Fernando Valley was in the process of being sold, and about a week ago, that buyer stepped out. That hotel may not be sold because the amount of money that this is going to cost cut in half the profits. So it is now at a 5% profit margin, which they will not be able to find a banknote on. We appreciate that you're going to do a study. We're asking in the study that you look at the regional differences. The Valley has a 62% occupancy rate, where other places have higher ones. We're asking that you move the study from the CLA, which we don't understand, to the CAO that has a mechanism for that, with the Office of Economic Analysis that our current council members already passed. And we don't buy the nexus. I don't see how the Convention Center or Griffith Park or anything that's listed in this motion affects people in Chatsworth or Warner Center. There is no nexus which can open up to a legal challenge. So we ask that you look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Adriana Fernandez, Teresa Eliers, and Bob Amano. Come forward, please. Adriana?
Good morning. I'm Adriana Fernandez from VICA. I'm going to echo a little bit on what Stuart said. As we have seen in previous examples such as Long Beach, living wage proposals such as this often have the potential to hurt the community they intend to help by causing mass layoffs and doubling the workload for employees who do keep their jobs. We are here to support an unbiased study to be conducted by the CAO to look at the underlying issues of the impacts realized in other municipal examples across the country and see whether or not this proposal can be effective in accomplishing its stated goals. We also need to make sure that the study is area-specific, looking at small segments of the city or zones, since the various parts of LA have different economic realities. In your motion, you mentioned occupancy rates and revenue per room available, or RevPAR. Use the total LA average, but this is not indicative of the Valley hotels that are over the hill from the attractions you cite in your nexus. We appreciate your time on this important issue, and thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Eilers with SAGE, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy in Councilmember Price's district. SAGE coordinates the South Los Angeles Community Jobs Coalition, which implements local hire agreements into living wage jobs made possible by community benefits agreements achieved by the Unidad Coalition. On a daily basis, we see how scarce and valuable good job opportunities are for South Los Angeles residents. This is why SAGE supports this campaign to raise the minimum wage for some of Los Angeles hotel workers.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Price, honorable committee members, Bob Amano, representing more than 130 affiliates and hotels within the Los Angeles area. As the Hotel Association, we're here today to express our deep concerns regarding the living wage proposal for our hotels. It's our conditional support for an independent study that today's motion calls for. The hotel industry believes that, again, being the sole target industry, it is with mandated wages increase that is going to nearly double the current minimum wage in California. It is unfair that only that one industry, our industry, is being targeted for this. It's bad for business, bad for jobs. As I've explained, this sends a wrong message to not only to Los Angeles, but to the entire nation who is anxiously watching to see what is going to happen here in Los Angeles. Several leading economists obviously have concluded that dramatic minimum wage hikes hurt the very people that you're trying to intend to help. In fact, recently released the federal study, the Independent Congressional Budget Office expresses concerns that the minimum wage, once fully implemented, would reduce total employment by 500,000 workers. So, if the City Council moves forward in approving this motion, the Hotel Association sincerely asks that we be included in the discussions for the study.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Nicole Shahinian from Shahinian. Easy for you to say. Ruben Gonzalez and Veronica Perez.
Good afternoon. Nicole Shahinian with the Hollywood Chamber. Our chamber hasn't taken a position on this officially yet, but we will in the near future. I do have some general concerns and comments to share with you. We echo the concerns that Bob just mentioned. Targeting this industry in particular is definitely going to be hurting some jobs. We've already heard in Hollywood of hotels that are considering moving there that will not do it if this ordinance passes. Additionally, we've been in this committee itself when they've said that there is a lack of hotels in Los Angeles to support the convention business that we want to attract here. So, you have another study going on talking about how to bring hotels and how to incentivize hotels to locate here. So we think this is really contrary to that. I don't think anyone can argue with the moral imperative of combating poverty. We question whether or not this is the actual way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. We commend the council members and folks who have spoken here. We all share the goal of creating better wages, of lifting folks out of poverty, of helping those who work hard to have a good standard and quality of life. But as Nicole just said, we just don't agree on the method that you're proposing here. But what is heartening is that this motion calls for a study before any action on an ordinance is taken. But what we ask is that this study isn't treated as just a chore to get out of the way to get to an already desired conclusion. Be the arbiters of truth here. Be the folks who actually stand there and say, what are the facts? How is this actually going to impact an industry? How is it going to impact an economy? How is it actually going to impact the very workers you're trying to help? Be that arbiter of truth. Don't have a conclusion in search of a rationale. And the most concrete way you can do that starting off is by moving the management of this to the Office of Economic Analysis. That's why that office was created in the CEO's office. And we humbly ask that you take that action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Veronica Perez, and I represent a coalition of small hotels in the 100-room range. Many of these small hotels are family-owned and provide long-term, well-paying jobs for their employees. Many of them have the majority of employees who are tipped and have wages that far exceed the minimum wage that is reportable. Although this proposal could affect the entire hospitality industry in Los Angeles, smaller-sized hotels are far more susceptible to the negative impacts of a wholesale change to their wage structure. Small hotels are differently situated and lack the economies of scale of larger hotels, and a wage increase of this magnitude could trigger higher room rates and worker layoffs in small hotels. We're just here today to ask that you take this into consideration in your economic study and include the following. First, what would the impact of this proposal be on hotels of all sizes, including small hotels in the 100 to 200 room range? And second, if a hotel living wage ordinance moves forward, should the room threshold be higher than the 100 that is in the motion? Finally, we ask that you instruct the CAO and CLA to sit down with stakeholders in the small hotel industry to gather their feedback about how this proposal would impact them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Howland and Adina Tressler.
Good afternoon. I'm John Howland with the Central City Association. CCA believes that this requirement for every hotel employee will reduce existing jobs, halt hotel development, costing construction and future full-time jobs, and harm the city's tax base. And we also believe that this proposal threatens investments in new hotels. But this is merely our word. And that is why the city must undertake a thorough and independent study of all the economic impacts of raising a minimum wage by over 67%. This study must not be an isolated slice that says everything will be rosy. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. It must look at the impact on job creation and job retention, on new investment, on the restaurants and hotels, and on the corollary industries that service hotels. We've just also heard that the council is considering doing this ordinance concurrently with the study. This will just show that the study outcome has been predetermined. Doing the ordinance now is putting the cart before the horse and will make the deal look like the deck look like it's been stacked. And so the study must be done first. It must be done fairly and independently, and it must be done in an honest way. CCA has created a list of questions that we've submitted to your offices and to Mr. Williams, and we hope that you'll take those under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Adina Tesler, and I'm here representing the California Restaurant Association. The Restaurant Association's concern is for the number of restaurants that lease space in these hotels and whether the ordinances would apply to all employees working within the hotels. The restaurant industry employs 1.4 million people in California, generates a huge amount of tax revenue to our state, and they're very concerned about the impact a living wage ordinance would have on their ability to continue in these hotels and on their ability to continue employing all of these people. In addition, the restaurant industry is like no other in that the employees that work in the front of the house in a restaurant don't make anywhere near a minimum wage. There is no tip credit in California, one of the few states that doesn't have it. And so as a result, these employees are making $25 to $30 an hour. Nevertheless, we ask you to please look at the restaurants and the retail that rent and lease space in these hotels and look at the impact it would have on their employees as well.
Thank you. Do we have any other cards? Well, certainly appreciate the testimony. I can assure you that we also want a full and robust study. This is not pre-packaged. It's not pre-done. We're not doing an ordinance simultaneously. And we do want to hear from all stakeholders, and so there will be ample opportunity for you to weigh in with thoughts, suggestions, concerns, and issues as this agenda moves forward. It is for a study to get to the facts, and so we hope to address all of those issues that were concerned. Members, do you have any comments? Councilman Weezar.
Thank you, Mr. Price. And I want to ensure that one item is included in the studies as well, and that is that we not only look at existing hotels and new construction of hotels, but also adaptively reused hotels. If you look at the area of Los Angeles where we are encouraging new hotels to come online, it's downtown Los Angeles, and as we've noted, there's a shortage of about 5,000 keys, or anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 keys, for us to accommodate the type of economic activity we all would like to see in downtown Los Angeles. But as you look at where these new hotels or these new beds can come up, there's relatively little new space for that to happen. A lot of that will happen in older buildings that will be converted into hotels. And so we don't want to miss an opportunity here as we study this, that we don't look at those buildings that will be adaptively reused, and what does that mean when you do this, because as we attempt to preserve the city's architectural history, as we attempt to adaptively reuse older buildings that are probably the only new places that hotels will come up for downtown Los Angeles, we have to look at how this new policy may affect that. So I just want to make sure that that's included in there. And secondly, also as we look at reusing some of our older buildings in downtown LA for new hotel use, they're not going to be huge. And so we have to ask ourselves, at what level does this make sense? When you look at these adaptively reused buildings, does a 100-level room make sense or not? And how we come up to that. So those are some of the things I hope can be included in the study as well.
Thank you.
You know, I think that the public comment has been very good today. We've heard a lot about some really important substantive issues that have to be considered as we move forward in this, as well as the personal economic issues that hotel employees face in Los Angeles today. I'm intrigued by the issue of determining whether the CLA or CAO should oversee the economic analysis, in part because we're kind of going into an area that we haven't been into very often in going out for outside economic analysis. And I should note that we've entered into an awful lot of hotel subvention agreements without an independent economic analysis either. And I think I would much prefer to see a lot more independent economic analysis of some of the things that we do. We have created an Office of Economic Analysis now that's significantly underfunded in the Office of the CAO, but we do have a structure there. So I don't know who to direct this to, maybe to the CLA, as to thoughts about whether...
Why don't we back the CLA up?
What would be the appropriate... what would be the...
I think, Councilman, the thought was that CLA would be working closely with the CAO.
And that's what I would expect as well.
And the city attorney, in fact. We know the CAO is consumed with the budget, if you will, and so we wanted to create a structure that would permit them to work in a collaborative way. But
that's what I expected, and I appreciate that clarification, Mr. Chairman, because we have seen that time and again where the CLA has worked hand in hand with the CAO on these sorts of things. And so I thought that it was important that we talk about how this would be structured for the moment. So
it's Richards here from CLA. Would you care to?
It's certainly the will of the council to determine how best to approach this. There is the Office of Economic Analysis, and they have certain procedures for determining how a study should be conducted and whether a particular subject matter qualifies for analysis within their office. And that determination we haven't run that. We need to check on that. So this is an opportunity for the council to decide how best to expedite the study and ensure that it moves forward. We would certainly work with the CAO. They have a list of qualified consultants that would be appropriate to include in the determination of who would be doing the study, et cetera.
So CLA would work with the CAO in developing kind of a scope of work that would be part of an RFP, I would assume.
Certainly, yes.
And in the process of doing that work, I'm assuming that the CLA would take into account some of the areas that have been raised by people today, the lists of questions of issues that ought to be included within a scope of work, and then the independent economic analyst would determine to what degree those issues are economically significant in assessing this kind of a policy.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm very comfortable with that kind of an approach, and I think having this sort of analysis will answer, we hope, answer an awful lot of the questions that have been raised today on all sides of this issue, so it's very helpful to move forward.
Thank you. Councilman Cedillo.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this meeting, and thank you for this opportunity. It seems like we've spent our whole lives working on this issue. And nonetheless, for all our hard work, we find ourselves as a city, state, and nation where we have the largest divide between wealth and poverty since the Great Depression. And that's a fact. Its reasons and causes are obvious. Our economy has changed dramatically in our lifetime from a manufacturing-based economy to a service and technologically based economy. And so those great jobs that people were able to have in the Southeast Corridor, all those great factories, American Can and Bethlehem, the car manufacturers in the Valley, those are also in Pico Rivera, no longer exist, nor does aerospace. And so we have a different economic terrain. In addition, over the past 30, 40 years, we've seen this pronounced decline in unionism. It was once 35% of the workforce a mere 35 years ago. Today, it is around 10%, half in the public sector, half in the private sector. Just within the last 10 years, I think, those who get a defined benefit from work has dropped from 80%, from 80% to near 10%. So there's an incredible tearing apart of the social compact. The compact that says if you work hard, play by the rules, do the right thing, that you'll be able to share in the American dream. And that's not taking place, even though we have signs and signals that the economy is improving. And so the challenge for us is how do we maintain and restore the social compact? How do we do so in a way that is smart about how we go forward? There are various strategies. One, obviously, is union organizing. It was, as I said, 35% when we had great prosperity in the nation. And we've written laws to do that. I wrote one. I think you voted for it. And it went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court that year was not so pro-worker, so pro-union organizing. And unfortunately, it was stricken down. There's another strategy that I heard the mayor talk about yesterday, very important. Education is key to this. The new jobs in the economy are in healthcare delivery, 40%, and in technology. The number one job in the nation right now is a computer programmer. That's the top job, top demand in the nation. And so education is obviously another strategy. Before us is a question about how we make sure that everybody benefits from an improving economy. And so that's very important. And so I'm thoughtful, I'm appreciative of your motion, but I'm also thoughtful that we need a more comprehensive approach to this that I will bring forward. We need to think about all the entities that are involved here. There's a lot of gears moving in the economy. No one knows exactly how it works, because if they did, then they'd be figuring out how to, there'd be a very rich person, right? So nobody knows exactly how it works, but there's a lot of moving parts that we need to look at. And a lot of good questions were raised today about how we should figure out how to have a shared prosperity. One which includes not just hotel workers, but in those important sectors of the service economy, people who work in restaurants. The Restaurant Association came forward today with some good concerns, but there's another side to this. The more consumers that we create, the more disposable income, the more people that will be going to restaurants. So there's a dual edge here. It's a question of how do we find the right mix and balance. Same with janitors. I don't see them here in this study, this proposal. But waste and waste management, you and I know, with waste all over our districts, is an important subject matter. It's more than just a trash can under a desk in a building, but it's a whole major part of the economy. And then obviously, of course, health workers. And so I applaud your efforts, but I also think that, and I would like to have a fuller discussion with all the parties at the table to talk about how the city, not just one industry, but the entire city works together to raise the standards, to raise the minimum wage, but does so in a way that's coherent, that's thoughtful, that's forward-looking, that works with business and really finds that point where we have shared prosperity. And as I've said, both to the labor movement and to the business groups and the chambers, shared prosperity means both those things. The shared part, but it also means the prosperity part, which means that we have to continue all the great things that we do, the aggressive nature of this council in supporting business. I heard the mayor talk yesterday about no taxes for businesses. I've heard others talk about the importance of supporting the film and television industry, and we see filming taking place every day in the city. We need to look at all the industries in a comprehensive way to figure out what works for all Angelenos in a way that will ensure that working works for all Angelenos, and that when people do work and play by the rules, that they're able to take care of themselves and their families. I thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I share your concern that we should be raising all the boats.
Yep.
And I think that certainly is a goal that many of us have. This motion is limited to hotel workers, certain hotel workers, and we certainly don't want to get any Brown Act violations by trying to throw something else in the mix. But I hope this motion will usher in a discussion, a discussion of citywide raising wages citywide. I think it certainly is appropriate and proper and very timely. Councilwoman Martinez, any thoughts?
Going along, just getting back to what Mr. Krikorian had asked in terms of collaborating with the CAO's office, there shouldn't be a reason why we couldn't use the list of consultants that the CAO's office uses, right?
Right.
That's all.
Just a question of paying for it.
You're right.
Right.
That's another story.
That's always a question, but.
Another story. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today for this important discussion. I don't think there's anything more important than for us to discuss how we make our local economy stronger and make the quality of lives for our residents better. I believe this motion does help us a step closer to those goals. LA has always been a progressive leader, and it's time that we get engaged in this important civic discussion, and I believe this is a necessary step if we're ever truly going to address and correct what's called the barbell economy, an economy that leaves too many families behind. As we've heard from the business community, there are still some who believe that the initiative would have an adverse impact on our thriving hotel industry. Well, we hear your concerns, and again, want to be clear that during this robust debate, we want to hear all ideas, hear all suggestions. This is just a starting point, and it's clear that a lot of work still needs to be done. But I also firmly believe that we need to move expeditiously. Too many hardworking men and women are relying on us to do so. I think if we can help one family go from struggling to surviving, then we're doing a good job. Others have also questioned why tackle this at all. Well, I take my commitment to the voters very seriously. They elected me with a mandate to improve the quality of life for citizens who live in the 9th District and for all of L.A. They elected me to have the courage to fight for what's right, even when it's not politically popular. But today, colleagues and stakeholders, we have a rare opportunity to advance policy that's right morally and it's right for the bottom line. We've heard some reports suggest that an increase in wages for hotel workers could pump an extra $70 million into our economy. $70 million. I think I speak for all my colleagues when I say, we can't get that money in the economy fast enough. But that's the kind of investment, would have a tremendous ripple effect in the community, helping scores of businesses gain customers while helping to lift more than 11,000 families out of poverty. And I believe the economic study we're asking for today will help us prove exactly how beneficial this will be for all Los Angelinos. And so, members, without objection, I'm going to request the public, first of all, to submit input on this issue to the CLA's office within the next 30 days. If you have a report or an idea or a comment or a suggestion, certainly forward that on. And also to instruct the CLA, with the assistance of the CAO and city attorney, to study the issue, take input from stakeholders, and report back to this committee in 45 days.
Beautiful. Second.
Any objection? Second? All right, so moved. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job.